Hey everybody, it's Amy Martin here with my colleagues Erika Janik and Sam Moore.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are here to talk about the making of Season 5.
That's right. We asked our listeners for questions about anything related to the season or the making of the show. Honestly, I was really open to any kind of question. Favorite band, favorite color, favorite bird. But we'll stick to the questions we got about actually making Threshold. And we also have Sam here to give us some facts, fun facts.
Thanks for having me. I've been reading all too much about some pretty weird stuff thanks to Season 5. So excited to dive in.
So I guess we should get to some of the questions. Our first question is about the idea for the season itself. And this listener asks, how did you formulate the idea for Hark? My ears sense a bit of art meeting science in the world.
I feel like I have been dreaming of making this season of Threshold before I knew that Threshold was a thing. I think it's kind of obvious that I love sound. That's what I'm working in. And I also really just feel on a personal level like being out in the world, listening to places, to other creatures, all of that is just really interesting to me. And I know that I'm very much not alone in that. It's, part of our whole evolutionary history to hear things beyond like our own noise. But at the same time, it's sort of in the background in terms of so-called environmental issues. I think that like what comes to mind for people are things like factories spewing out pollution or obviously the climate crisis. And I think the ways in which we're drowning out the voices of other beings and filling spaces with our own sounds, it sort of can get lost, I guess, amongst all the other things that we're thinking about. And when we lose sight of it as a problem, I think that's also a symptom of is losing sight or falling out of earshot of the joy and the wonder and the sense of connection that comes from being able to listen beyond ourselves.
I think it's really interesting to hear you say that you had this idea for the season before Threshold even existed as Threshold. And that leads really nicely into our next question that we got. We do have some new listeners this season, which is so great. And one of the questions that we got is, how is this season fitting into the larger story of Threshold and what we're trying to do with the show?
I think this season gets right to the heart of what we're trying to do with the show, because the heart of Threshold for me is all about relationship between humans as individuals, as groups, but crucially how those relationships are nested within relationships to our places, relationships to other creatures, plants, whatever, and also how they're related to each other without us. Basically not centering the human in our exploration of the world, but also not like absenting ourselves in a weird way. Like, I don't want to do nature stories in big quotes where it's like, well, and then nature, of course, means everything that's not us. Like, that's so strange and is kind of the weird mirror world of having us be everything and always at the center. I'm wanting to explore stories and think and investigate and learn and feel from a position of what it actually is, that we're interconnected, interdependent. And in this case, because the human voice is so dominant right now, it just feels like taking that concept of being connected and not centering ourselves, like really, really literally, and being like, let's just hand the mic over to the tree crickets, the naked mole rats, the whales, the dolphins, the elephants, and see what happens.
And so in that spirit, I have handed the microphone over for the rest of this episode to my dog. And so on to our next question. This one is for all of us. What is a sound that you really enjoy, and what is a sound that you don't? Sam, I'm gonna make you go first.
Okay, all right. There's a ton of sounds, obviously, that I enjoy. A real classic for me is the chorus of frogs around a lake in New England in springtime. I mean, really anywhere in springtime. There's so many, it's like all the frequencies are filled up, and some of them sound like special effects from a movie, and other ones sound like magical symbols and percussion creatures. So That I think that's a clear favorite. Let's see. I have pretty classic sounds that I don't like. Nails on a chalkboard really does actually get me. The sounds of like dry popsicle sticks rustling around, or any of those cheap like wooden ice cream spoons. that might be very weird, but those ones have the same effect on me, like raise the hairs on the back of your neck, nails on a chalkboard.
Wait,
I don't know why.
wait. Popsicle
I know, I'm like,
sticks?
what?
I'm confused. And I love that in your mind, this is a classic one, which I can't even quite imagine what.
No, sorry. The chalkboard was classic. This one, you know, like cheap wooden silverware at school lunches or wooden popsicle sticks have that kind of like raspy grating sound. And for whatever reason, my brain is just like, no, 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 no.
Fascinating. I love that. Erika?
Well, a sound that I really enjoy, I think, is going to be the most on the nose for anyone who knows me, which it would be my dog snoring. I just love listening to them snore. All other snoring is the most annoying thing on the planet, but something about dogs snoring, I love it. A sound I really don't enjoy, I guess this is kind of non-specific, but like repetitive sounds, I can't not focus on them. Your smoke detector needs a new battery. I mean, that one's hard to ignore, but just like I feel like I'm losing my mind. Or hearing like the backup sound of a truck that's just like going and going and going. I can't. It's all I can hear.
Yeah, that makes me curious about what's going on neurologically, because both of the sounds you mentioned are sounds that are designed to be something you can't avoid hearing, you know? The people who know about these things must have studied this and found out that, like, it works, you know? It really works.
What's the sound you enjoy, Amy?
Well, I will confess that one of the very first things that came to mind was my dog snoring as well. But I thought there was a decent chance you would say something dog related. So, but I think right in there, something that came to mind is a soundscape. And that's like the high alpine sound. And there's something really universal about the kinds of sounds that you get in those environments. Like often, like the shaly sort of rocks moving, you know, as you step, or a wind is almost always part of it. But sometimes it can be really still in these alpine environments, and then like the wind gusts. I think maybe what it is like the alpine environment is so quiet that all the different sounds like have a ton of space around them. Maybe there's like a raven calling and my own footsteps and a gust of wind, and everything sort of has its own sort of sonic space. And I love that. Plus, I just love it because I associate it with really good times. And a sound I don't like, this one is much, much more specific. I have a little plug-in thing that has like a combination of regular outlets, a couple of them, and USB connectors. And so it's really handy. But every once in a while, it starts to make this high-pitched, nonstop, but very, very quiet, hissy buzz. And it's really quiet. So it's not like you would be like, oh, what is that? But it like creeps up on you. And then it's like, oh, it's that sound. And I'm like, I have to run to it and pull it out. I'm like, get out of my sonic head right now.
I feel like this is the get to know people in your life question that I didn't know I needed. I think there's just something really fascinating about hearing people's different experiences of sound in the world and what speaks to them and what doesn't. So our next question is, there seems to be a disconnect in our modern world between hearing something or someone and really listening. Why do you think that is? And what stops us from being deeper listeners?
I think there are many answers, but I think maybe I'll divide my answers into two levels, kind of like the structural, societal level, and then maybe the more personal, individual level. I think structurally, systemically right now, we're in a world where listening is really not incentivized, like economically or status-wise. Like we're in a world where the incentives are to show yourself, to look good, to talk a lot, to fill the space. And you get somewhere sometimes in life for that. You get followers, you get money, you get prestige, you get power, you get status, these different things. And I don't really see the same incentive structure for listening, for taking in, for thinking deeply, for being quiet, for absorbing, for synthesizing other people's ideas. But I think in different societies and in different times in human history, the incentive has been really flipped. I'm even thinking of some places and communities that I have reported on for Threshold where you can feel the respect and value given toward people who don't talk too much, that not filling the space is what gets you status and power and is a sign of maturity and power to a certain extent. So I think that's one layer. And then I also think on the personal level, listening can feel really vulnerable. I think it means a certain surrender of control. And so I just think it can be hard to like have the confidence and to feel at ease enough within ourselves to find the calm that allows for the listening, you know? But then I think so often when we do it, it's like, oh, that actually felt really good. And it can relieve stress. But like a lot of things that relieve stress, like actually doing them, you have to get over that initial hurdle of of extra stress.
The related question that we had following up to this one was about what authentic listening feels like. And when I thought about that question and then just listening to what you said there, almost my immediate response would be uncomfortable at first. Maybe just that scariness. And I think you're right that there is this disincentive for listening. And there's so many things to occupy all of our senses all of the time. And to be an authentic listener, it is a real sharpening of your focus. And I think that that's hard and can feel uncomfortable. But I also think you're right that like it's just getting over that hurdle. And then you realize that it's really great and that the struggle was worth it.
Yeah, I think too, it is a great question. What does authentic listening feel like? And I kind of feel like that question can only be answered if you add the words at the end of it to you, because it feels different to every person and it also feels really different in different situations, I think. But I'm curious about the person who sent in this question. I'd love to know what their answer is too, because I think it's available to all of us, like at any moment. Evelyn Glennie, when I spoke with her for one of the episodes that we've released, saying, you know, like, you don't have to go to some guru. You don't have to like take a 2-year course on how to listen. You can just do it. And I mean, of course, it can help to put focused energy into it and to really try to learn how to listen. But it is also something available to all of us, even to her she does not hear airborne sound. And she was advocating like the power of and the possibility for all of us to listen. I think authentic listening can feel uncomfortable for a minute there. And then I also think it feels like a relief when I can really do it and when I can do it with like a lot of myself and not just a little thin slice of myself. It feels like I have found like a magic portal out of my own neuroses and into a moment of connection. And I think it's an amazing feeling. And it's one of the reasons why I'm doing audio for a living, because I love it.
We had a big snowstorm here this weekend. And so like that sort of sonic blanket that covers the landscape is a really good reminder of just how much quieter things can be than the ambient soundscape that most of us are used to. And I think that cultural aspect of so much of what we consume are people waiting to say their thing. That's their brand of thing to say. And then being quiet for as long as they have to, and then piping up again with their thing is not really conversational. So that idea of really trying to wait, take in what someone is saying or what you're hearing in a landscape or from creatures, and then process it before speaking again or trying to make meaning out of it, I think is really important. And I struggle to do that all the time. I almost never do that. So it's something I aspire to, but that sort of is I think what is connecting with me a lot in this season in particular.
So our next question is for you, Sam. Can you tell us a little bit about what fact-checking these episodes has been like for you?
I did bring a prop. I know that podcasting is famously not a visual medium, but this is mostly for Erika and Amy. I printed out this huge geological chart. It's a chart of Earth history. It's by the International Commission on Stratigraphy. Amy is taking us through 4.5 billion years of Earth history in this season. And I didn't study geology at all, so I have so much trouble remembering geological names. So I printed out this beautiful big color-coded chart, and I look at it many times an episode. Another awesome Earth history resource is an interactive map of the world. It's like Google Earth, but you can just plug in whatever year of Earth history you want, and it shows you the Earth and how the continents were displayed. It's just an estimate, but it was really helpful for picturing like what the world looks like and what sort of ecosystems look like across these different times. It's on a website called dinosaurpictures.org. So you can imagine what the primary purpose of that map is for, but it's based on real geology and modeling. A lot of fact checking is just basically like, is this true in a really factual sense? Do dolphins live this long on average or something? Those are pretty easy, and you can go to a textbook or you can find an expert. In terms of just like facts that have been fun, I'd say pollination right now is like the front runner, and just the dynamics, the evolutionary dynamics there are amazing. And so like you can't throw a rock without hitting some new really ridiculous way that a plant has evolved to attract a pollinator. There's quite a few in the episodes. Some of the other ones I found were flowers that reflect specific acoustic signatures back to bats. So they're like a little fingerprint that the bat sees on echolocation, or bees that buzz in a specific way that unlocks only one species of flower that is only releasing pollen to that species of bee when it's buzzing. Tons of stuff like that. The stuff that ends up being much more difficult to check is these questions that science can't totally answer. I think a great example of that is whether and how much plants are communicating, whether that's listening to insects or emitting sounds that might tell animals things. In both of those cases, there are some scientists who will only want to talk to you about just what they specifically found in one experiment, and they want to be really cautious about extrapolating out in these bigger ways. And then there's other people you talk to who are willing to take a couple experiments and then really speculate about what this might mean for us, for the planet. And sometimes those people really strongly disagree with each other about what we can say about what we know right now. That part is really fascinating and involves a lot of back and forth internally before we publish an episode about, what is the state of the science? Who agrees or not about these pretty big questions? Like, can plants listen? Or do plants have inner lives? It's really lovely to have time and space to explore all these questions and really try to figure out what they mean, which is not always an efficient process with some of this stuff that is disagreed about.
We're going to take a short break, and leading us into our break is some very special music featuring sounds from someone we heard from in episode 6 of Hark, researcher Jonathan Kleminder. These are ant sounds that he recorded, mixed with beats by Croft Cobble. This piece is called The Extended Secret Communication of Ants in the Soil.
Hi, Threshold listeners. Do you ever find yourself wondering what businesses are doing and what more they should do to confront climate change? Then you should check out Climate Rising, the award-winning podcast from Harvard Business School. Climate Rising gives you a behind-the-scenes look at how top business leaders are taking on the challenge of climate change. The show covers cutting-edge solutions, from leveraging AI and carbon markets to sharing stories that inspire climate action. Recent episodes feature insightful conversations with leaders like Netflix's first sustainability officer, Emma Stewart, who discusses how the global entertainment giant uses its platform to promote climate awareness. You'll also hear from CNN's chief climate correspondent, Bill Weir, about the importance of integrating climate change into news coverage. Each episode dives deep into the challenges and opportunities that climate change presents to entrepreneurs and innovators. Listen to Climate Rising every other Wednesday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
There isn't one single key to a happy life. Our happiness comes from many things, like connecting with others, how we treat ourselves, and how we relate to the natural world around us. And there are practices that have been shown in the lab to help us get better at these things. I'm Dacher Keltner, psychologist at UC Berkeley. Join me on the Science of Happiness podcast as we explore these practices. In each episode, guests from all walks of life give a practice a try. And then we hear from experts about why they work. Find the Science of Happiness wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back to Threshold. I'm Erika Janik here with Amy Martin and Sam Moore, and we are answering your questions. So besides questions about sound and listening in Season 5, we also got some more general questions about how we make the show. The first one has to do with flying. Do you check your recording gear in your luggage, or do you carry it on? And window or aisle? The most important question of all.
Window, of course. Like, who doesn't want the window? I don't understand. And no, I do not check my recording gear. I have it in a bag that I wear on my back through the security check and onto the plane and put above me. And then oftentimes, if it's a long flight, nervously worry to make sure nobody accidentally takes it when they get off the plane, because it has all the stuff I need the most.
Next question is, how do you handle interviews that don't go according to plan?
I think the most important thing is to plan on not having too strict of a plan, because I think the best interviews are conversations, and a conversation that has sort of a puppet master isn't a conversation. I mean, honestly, it kind of comes back to listening, because I think the interviewee can then feel like you're not actually tuning into what I'm saying. You're pursuing your own agenda here.
Our next question is, where is a place that you've traveled on a reporting trip that you want to go back and visit again?
All of them. Literally all of them. It's so interesting to go back to a place that you've visited, just because it gives you a chance to think about how things have changed or people have changed. If I had to pick one right now, like somebody was going to hand me a ticket to go somewhere, I think I would say Greenland. I loved Greenland. I loved the people there. I loved the landscape. I found the whole country absolutely fascinating. And I mean, I'd love to go up on the ice sheet again, too, to see how that experience might be different. But I think what I'd really love to do is like spend significant time in communities and learning from people, talking with people. But yeah, basically, I would go anywhere that anybody wants to send me again. New places or old places.
I guess I don't know how many places you've gone as a reporter and then gone as a civilian.
A person.
Yeah. Is it different going to a place that you first visited as a reporter than going as a person?
Yeah, I don't know how much I have done that either, but I kind of think that once you go as a reporter, you can never not go partly as a reporter. Like, I'm thinking about the Bison Range. That's a place where I went as a civilian first multiple times, and then went as a reporter multiple times. And then I think, yeah, somewhere in the mix of going as a reporter multiple times, I also went as just like a person, brought my mom. But it's like, I'm still a reporter. Like, it just changes it in a good way, I think. You feel more connected, and then I feel like my curiosity is matched a little bit more with some actual facts and research. So that just like a deeper curiosity, I guess, and maybe a little bit more of a sense of investment in a place.
Next question is, do you keep in touch with any previous guests? And this person wants tea updates.
I'm not systematic about it, but I do reach out to folks from time to time. I've talked to Robbie Magnan out at the Fort Peck Reservation. I've talked to people who work at the Bison Range and people in the CSKT community who now own the Bison Range. I talked to the Alexanderson family in Norway every once in a while. I don't know. It feels a little tricky to give any updates. When I'm touching base with people, it's not like, you're on the record, so tell me a thing that I can share out with the world. But I will say one really fun thing that happened a few months ago is I got a random phone call from Sarah James, who is the person from Arctic Village who we spent a lot of time with in season 3. And it was just delightful. We just talked for a half an hour, and she sounded good. She sounded very much like Sarah James and her quintessential self. I would just love to go spend a long time, spend a good solid day with every single person I've talked to on the show. It would be really, really meaningful to me to see how everyone's doing.
Well, our final question is back to a sound question for all of us. What's a sound that you've never heard that you really want to hear?
Erika, you go.
Okay. I did think about this one a little bit beforehand and was like, whoa, what exotic, what thing can I think of? And then I think what I've come to, though, is I would love to hear something going on in my yard that I don't know is going on. And I think since I had the opportunity to record the tree hoppers and standing next to them and seeing them and not hearing a thing, and then the microphone is next to them and they're grunting and yelling at each other, it just makes me think what is going on in my neighborhood all the time that I don't know about? That's what I want to know. This is the place I'm in all the time. This is the place I know the best. And I would love to hear something new. So that's what I want in. I want to eavesdrop on my neighborhood in a new way.
How about you, Sam?
Good question. Erika, that's really interesting. I think a lot of hearing sounds for Threshold recently has been hearing the work of scientists who are making imperceptible sounds perceptible to us. But it also makes me think of sounds that are super perceptible to us, and in my case, pretty nearby, but that I've never heard. And I think one that I know people have experiences hearing that I would love to hear someday is whale song underwater. They're talking all the time, and I live on the Atlantic coastline. There's whales here a lot, and a lot of them are some of our most vocal species. So the idea of being able to actually hear that sort of in real time in the water yourself has always been something I've imagined as a very profound experience.
Oh, yeah. I can't resist having 2 answers. One is kind of probably stereotypical, but in future episodes, people are going to hear some reporting from Kenya, which was amazing. And I got to hear so many cool things there, but I did not get to hear a lion. And I would love to hear a lion in the wild from a safe position somewhere. I would really love to hear that. And the other thing is, and this is a really probably kind of weird one, but I think not infrequently about how different places on the planet sounded at different times. And so I would love to just be able to that map you were describing, Sam. I would love to be able to call up a date, press a button, and hear Manhattan 10,000 years ago, or the heart of Australia 30 million years ago, whatever, or even just Athens year 10. It would just be so cool. It would be so cool. And I feel like there's just nothing that would take me there or help me kind of feel like I understood something about the place better than that. And it would be amazing.
I want to change my answer. No, I want all of yours and mine.
I want yours too.
That was our final question for today. Thank you so much, listeners. Those of you who sent your questions in, I apologize if we didn't get to yours. It's been really fun to hear from you, and it's been really fun for me. Despite being involved in this season from the very beginning, I heard some things today that I didn't know about. I feel like this season, maybe more than other seasons that I've worked on, I feel like there's all of these just things in my daily life that I'm realizing on the regular I have a very surface level or no understanding of, or I've made some assumption about. And that is so fun.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And just so everybody knows, we are very much not done. There are many episodes to come. And really grateful for all of your questions and for the fact that you are listening, the fact that you're sharing episodes and the season overall. So stay tuned. We have a lot more coming soon.
Are there any hints or any sneak peeks?
Well, I mentioned them earlier, but I just would like to tempt you with naked mole rats.
Nothing more tempting.
Speaking of rats, you can rat and review us on Apple Podcasts.
Oh boy, what an ending. Thank you to you both. And thank you, listeners, for sending us your great questions. More from us soon. Hey friends, we have got another way for you to connect with us here at Threshold. It's our email newsletter. By signing up, you'll stay updated on new episodes of the show and dive deeper into the fascinating sounds you're hearing in our latest season, Hark. From time to time, we'll also share a behind-the-scenes look at how we make the show, plus recommendations from our team on what else we're reading, watching, and listening to. Signing up is easy. Just head over to thresholdpodcast.org or click the link in our show notes. We are so grateful you're part of this community, one that's truly curious about the world around us. And as always, thank you so much for listening.